in green cleaning, it's changing that mindset from what we're doing today to being more proactive and helping to reduce the negative impacts on our health. And with that, I'd like to explain that if you have a green building, if you've got a LEED certified building, which is predominant these days, or you have somebody that really is focusing on a lot of things, what they're focusing on is energy conservation, water management, waste reduction. And these are important things to have, but a green cleaning service is as important as these items to a total green building. Now, before we get started, and I get too far into this, I want to ask a question because everybody walks across a mat at the front door. So what we're going to ask you today is, do you use bi-level matting at the front door? It's very important that you do. And so as you see here, we've got several things come up. So number one is 20%, 50%, 80%, or 100%. Now this is how much do you use? Do you use it only in one place, just a little bit? So if you will, we've got a few seconds here that we'll go. And if you'll just click that little button there and give us an idea of how much matting do you use. You know, the thing is, you look at a lot of this matting that's out there, and some of it isn't very good. It's there, but it's single level, not bi-level. So let's go ahead and close the poll here and see what we have for totals. As you can see, it looks like 14% are only have 20% of matting that's bi-level. 29% say that 50%, over half of their matting is bi-level. But here's what I really like is 43% of you say that 80% of the matting that you have is bi-level. That means you're getting a lot of that dirt out the door. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And 14% says that 100% of your matting is bi-level. Great. I'd like to see that number go up, and maybe you can. It may be budget that's keeping you from doing that, and we appreciate that. So let's go on. The outline of our floor care program today is basically the life cycle of floor care. It's the core of what is the essential to green floor care. What are the chemical exposures, those tools and equipment we use? What are the best practice standards that you can actually use? And we're going to be talking about surface coating maintenance. Now, before we get into this, I want to define what hard floor maintenance really is. This is the act of maintaining the integrity, cleanliness, appearance, and the safety of various floor surfaces using various cleaning, refinishing, and or restorative methods. Now that's a long explanation for cleaning the floor, but it goes so much further than that. And I'm only going to spend an hour on a very large topic. But I want to show you some recent pictures I took. Now these pictures, as you look at them, were in a daycare. Now understand there's about 35 to 40 young people, 2 years old to preschool, 5, and they're walking around on these floors. Now, as I was cleaning this floor, I happened to take some pictures, and these were, as I was cleaning, I was smelling all of the stuff that was coming up, and this is what these students, or these children were running around in there barefooted. Now, it wasn't just the children. The teachers have to go in the same place, the people that take care of them. And there was a daycare below, and there's a classes for the students upstairs. You know what's the ugly part about all of this? This is what the conventional maintenance results were from a building service contractor that was a paid professional, and this is what they were left with. Now, at the end of the webinar today, I'm going to show you what it looked like after I used our green cleaning best practice standards and the processes. But now what I want to understand is that before you actually start doing any maintenance on the floor, it has to get there. So you have distribution. Let me see if the pointer works here. You have distribution here. You have manufacturing, you have installation. All of this is only 1.63%, and that's before you start any maintenance. So now let's think about what happens after you start the maintenance. Well, look at all of the stuff that you're going to do. You're going to use all of these tools, all of these chemicals, all of these people, and all of the surfaces that you're taking care of. But what does this mean? The true cost of flooring in the life cycle of flooring is actually 98% is this. So whenever somebody talks to me about the success and failure of a floor care program, 98% of the time it is in what we do and how we do it, not actually all the tools. So what is it that we do? Well, everybody talks about pH. Do you really know what pH means? I'm going to give you a few little things here. pH is the acid and alkaline. But now we all know that 7 is neutral. We've been told this all our lives. But do you recognize how much it changes every time you move away from 7? So if you move from an 8, that's 10 times stronger product. Now this is either way, whether you're going acid or alkaline. But if you move to a 9, that's 100 times stronger than a 7 neutral cleaner. So if you've got a 9 pH that you're cleaning the floor with, that's doing 100 times more cleaning or possibly damage to that floor. But take a look at what happens when you use a 10, 1,000 times more. Why is it that we think we need to use a product on a floor that's 1,000 more times stronger than neutral cleaner, or water for that matter? I'm not even going to talk about a 14 pH. And why are we using these products? What is the result? What is happening to us? Well, what I want you to focus on as we go through today is if there is a pH issue in all of cleaning, and it has to be balanced with physical removal, and you'll understand why when we get through today. The core of green cleaning is right here, daily grit removal. Now I'm going to go into this a whole lot more, but I'll just these are the areas I want to talk about. You have interim cleaning, which is gloss restoration. You have more interim cleaning, which is scrub and recoat. Then you have restorative cleaning, which is when you strip the floor off and recoat and start the process over. So it all fits into the program this way. You have the core of green cleaning, you have the other areas, and these circle around the one issue. It always circles around that daily grit removal. Now let's go into that just a little bit more. When you get into daily grit removal, there's 3 different parts to the daily grit removal, and this is passive. This is that doormat that I asked you about at the first, and it looks like 43% of you have that bi-level matting. Well, this is what's getting 80% of that dirt off of the floor. This is what's helping you remove that dirt from the floor, because when you come to this mechanical dust mopping and the sweeping and the vacuuming, if that mat has done its job better, there's less of this that you have to do. But both of these steps are, shall we say, physical removal with no pH. Now we have to add the pH. This is when you grab your mops and your auto scrubbers, you use water, you use activated water, you use water with chemical, whatever it is. This is where you get that physical removal in balance with pH. This is what you do every day. This is the biggest part of what we do. This is where most green floor care programs fail, is because we spend so much time on everything else, we don't focus on this. If you want to do one big thing, focus on this. Now, did you know that it takes a number of feet on a mat to get dirt off? Well, of course you did. That's why you walk across the mat. But did you know that $500 to $750 is what is spent in money to take care of 1 pound of soil? So if you don't stop it on these mattings, this bi-level matting, if you just lay that single level matting out there and it can walk in the building, for every pound of that, that's costing money out of your budget. This mat is always on the job. It's never late. It's an unpaid employee. Take into consideration that every grain of sand that is walked into that door has 35 cutting edges on it. How many grains of sand can you accumulate in a 1 pound of dirt and debris? Now, that bi-level matting, 12 feet. And remember, you got a quiz at the end of this, so take some notes here, folks. 12 feet of matting is required to remove 80%. So I would like to add, just think about this, and there's no quiz here, but of the 100% of the people, the 14% of the people that have 100% bi-level matting, is it over 12 feet? Because if it's over 12 feet and between 12 and 36, Now you're getting a lot of that debris off of the feet before it ever gets to your floor finish, before you ever have to start mopping and sweeping and dust mopping. Why not take it off on the mat? A vacuum's a whole lot easier to run over one little spot than to run an auto scrubber and a dust mop continuously all day. This is where I'm going to take a breath and say gloss removal, gloss restoration. You know, I see so many people so much of the time spending just multitudes of money on making that floor look pretty, but they don't have any matting. They're not taking care of it at the door. You can't have one without the other. This is where we're talking about low pH, low physical removal. There's chemical involved here. There's burnishing of the floor finish. There's also interim, where we're talking about scrub and recoat. We're using different mechanical units, different pads. We're using different finishes. This takes more time on our part. We're using moderate pH. We're using more physical removal. This is just more of a job. So now you get into gloss restoration. You know, this is where we're talking about that coating, where we've got to recoat it and we've got to remove that finish so we can, you know, start this whole process all over again. Well, now we're into heavy pH. I mean, you know, we're talking about those 10 or higher pHs that most people use for strippers. You're talking about lots of water, lots of finish, lots of time. This just gets very, very laborsome. And this is where we're getting into that stripping of the floor finish. You know, we're talking about now we've moved from just restorative to actually into cleaning it all off and starting this cycle again. Now, what you want to do is you only want this in green floor care. This cycle that we're talking about here, this heavy cycle, should only be once every 5 years. People that are doing this every 6 months, every year, every 2 years, you know, I'm sorry to tell you, that's just not green cleaning. You're doing better than you were before, but it's not green cleaning. You need to be in the 5-year cycle for this process. Now, when it comes to these chemicals, I told you we talk about the exposure. Well, now, if you're exposing yourself to a pH 7 chemical, we're going to have very low exposures. Why? Because, well, most of the water that we drink is pH 7. It could be slightly, you know, like a 6.5 or 7.5 based on where you're getting your water from. But you're wanting to make sure that the product that you have is certified. Now, what you're seeing here on the screen in this little block right here, okay, this is taken from our 180 best practice standards. Now, I'll show you that in totality a little bit later, but you're actually getting points for being able to use these neutral cleaners. And you notice this max of 0 to 1 to 0. This is very important. When you take the full course, you'll understand exactly how important that is. Now, we also talk about green floor finish strippers because these two chemicals are the biggest part of the floor chemicals that are used. The daily cleaner, and then it's the stripper that they're using at the end. Now, what you have here is you have low or VOCs. There's even some people that are doing the chemical-free stripping, but you always want your pH to be below 7 or below 11. The VOC levels need to be below 10, and they need to be certified by a third party, and you can see the different ones that we recognize here. Now, one of the things that you can do is to remove the issues so that we don't have as many of these issues to deal with. Now, what is it that you don't see in this picture? Now, if you look behind these chairs, whoops, sorry about that. Let's go back here. So if you look behind these chairs, there's nothing here. And you're saying, oh, well, they just did the floor. This was after the first 3 to 4 weeks of school. Now, why is there not something there? Well, it's the railroad tracks. If you've ever been in a school district and they're right by the typing desk, you see these chairs that get pulled in and out, and there's this big black line that comes out. I call it the railroad tracks. Yeah, maybe it's not really the true way to say it, but everybody understands what we're talking about. Protect what you're doing. Now, a technician, Rob Lewis, has this to say about protecting his investment and removing the issue. He says, our green floor finish holds up very well. I have found that if you keep the floors vacuumed and the tabs clean on the desk and the chairs, your floors will look good all school year. And you can see what he's done here. He's added these tabs to the bottom of his chairs. There's felt on the bottom of them, and these stick on the chair. They're not easily pushed off. What they're doing is they're protecting his floor from being scratched up, reducing his need for chemicals, time, and labor, and also performing a protection for his investment. Now, we went through that part. We're going to talk a little bit about the equipment that you're using. I'm not going to repeat all these. You guys have used these all your life, or if you're just getting started, you're getting an education about all these items. And I'll show you some pictures as we go. Microfiber and green floor care. It's these days, folks, it's almost a must. Edwin, thank you for joining us there. They have great holding abilities. If you see that you've got, what you have here is you have these little channels that the debris can get into, and that's what holds it. Microfiber does not absorb. If somebody is telling you their microfiber absorbs, they don't know what they're talking about, because it's plastic. And the reason that that this is working so well is because the plastic holds it. It does not absorb it. So what this does is it makes it, whenever you squeeze this plastic and you squeeze those little channels, the solution and the dirt goes right along with it. So it's very free rinsing. What does this mean? With the channels in here, I can use less water, or I can use no chemicals at all. If I'll use less chemicals with the water, or I'm going to use no chemicals at all. These are the true things about microfiber that's making it very, very good. When it comes to that daily grit removal, what you have here is dust mopping. Now, everybody says, oh, I can't afford dust mops. Well, you're going to put a dust mop on a standard frame, and at some point you're going to have to use those. So now you have microfiber with the standard frames, can be used just like you're doing right now. Just simply change the mop head, and you will be utterly surprised at how much soil that will be removed from the floor without you having to do a whole lot more work. Now, if you want to step up and you want to go a little bit further and you want to do a little bit more, you can get the Velcro back. These come on and off very easily, and along with those comes the tools that have, they have handles. The handles can come in and out. The handles are adjustable, so there's more ergonomics. We're not dealing with the same old thing, and these are much lighter than the metal frames and the wood handles. A lot less fatiguing on your employees or yourself if you're the one doing it. If you really want to go to the best, go to the V-shaped dusters. What these do is these pull in all of this debris from the outside edges, and you can see here how much you can collect in a V-shaped duster. You can cover up to 6 feet wide, maybe even 7 feet on some of them. And what you're doing here is you're using microfiber, you're using an ergonomic handle, and people can really get the job done very quickly and efficiently. Whoop, wrong way. So let's get to microfiber dust mopping 101. As you can see, the handle is adjusted to the worker here, so she's not bent over. The microfiber is collecting. You see the debris in the front of it. And then whenever you come to the end, what you have is a pile of dirt, of debris. You don't have dust. You don't shake these out and create that dust storm for the worker to breathe. As you see here, what she's doing is she's brushing this off below her realm of breathing, and whatever is coming off there is going straight on the floor. The pile is grown on the floor, and then what she's going to do is use this tool that is not a broom. Brooms are not green tools. What you're using is a squeegee. Why do you use a squeegee? Because it smooths everything over to the area to be picked up. If you use a broom, it always leaves stuff behind. It's creating a dust storm. We do not want that dust in my area of breathing. And then as you see here, she's picked this up, and there's nothing left on the floor. All of the dirt and debris is in the bottom of the bag. We don't have a dustpan that's all full of garbage and stinky and has to be cleaned out. You simply are using a trash bag that is also a recyclable green trash bag. How much greener can you get? Now, from Contracting Profits back in January of 2007, they were recognizing then how much that microfiber was doing for the mopping. And they termed this as safer mopping. And at that time, they recognized an average worker uses up to 21 gallons of cleaning solution for string mopping during a single shift. Now what they have understood is that you can reduce this with microfiber down to as low as 2 gallons. Now, I don't know about you, but if you want to affect your budget, remove 20 gallons or 19 gallons of water every night in mop buckets, how much chemical have you saved over a year? That can affect your budget. I don't know what can. Here's the other thing, risk management. If you're concerned about insurance issues and reducing slip and fall accidents, less water, less liquid, dries faster. And I know some of us, we work in 24-hour situations, and this is something we really need. And this is why microfiber is really making a big impact. When it all started, what we had was these flat tools. And while it was a step up, I don't know about you, but if you've used them, they drag, drag, drag. Now, that doesn't mean that people still don't use them, but along came the looped microfiber. And the looped microfiber let us have the ability to slide this mop more freely, was less effort on us, and believe it or not, they collect more. Why? More surface area. They actually start working like, kind of like the conventional tools that we're used to. They started performing better. But you know what? Sometimes you just can't get people to change from where they are to a flat mop right away. So microfiber now has come into string mops. This mop right here is actually made of microfiber, works the same way as these do, and you can use a conventional style mopping system. I won't say the conventional mop bucket, that's the mopping system that's conventional. So what you've got here is you've got your string mop goes into a down press wringer, but now we have a split bucket or a dual compartment bucket. It separates the dirty water from the clean water. And what you also have is larger buckets that we can use. So what we can do is we can keep larger amounts of water here, and not only do we have the ergonomic handle to use, but also our wringing handle is much less. There's less effort that's put on this, and thus the worker has a safer situation. And then when you want to put this all together, we can put some of our cleaning items, and we can put our microfiber along with it. So now we have a mop bucket that's now sort of a semi-cleaning cart, if you will. Now, I do a lot of blogging, and mycleanlink.com is one of the places where I do a lot of stuff. And Tom Ryder just recently wrote this about his thoughts about green cleaning and microfiber. He says here, the joke is that there are still green cleaning services not making use of microfiber tools. I think there is a huge disparity between what the Green Clean Institute is doing and what green clean services actually do. Without microfiber tools or HEPA vacuums, how in the world can these companies keep a straight face when they claim to be green? Tom, I thank you for your post, and I could not agree with you more. So let's go on to the equipment. If you've not used the equipment very much, you will also need to know that your pad is always going to be underneath your motor on a low RPM rotary machine. This is your basic, everyday, conventional floor machine. I'm not saying this is a green floor machine, it's just where we've been. Your wheels are always going to be up, your pad is on the floor, and you're going to be walking in water in most cases when you're running one of these. Cylindrical floor machines came along about 10 years ago, and as you notice in the red circle there, it uses brushes. Now these brushes, instead of running at 175 RPMs, are typically running at around 1300 RPMs. And you see the rubber ramp that we've got positioned right here. And the reason that we're showing you this is because this is an area that with rotary machines we couldn't get it clean. Take a cylindrical brush unit on a rotary, these rubber mats, and I guarantee you it will come clean. And the reason is because what you have here is you have contact pressure. If you take a 20-inch rotary machine and you put that weight over that 20-inch, you have less pounds per square inch. So what we have here is in this red circle, we have a condensed area of pressure. We're getting more, we're spinning the brush faster, we're getting more physical removal. And isn't that what we buy a floor machine for? We buy it for physical removal. Where can you use a cylindrical brush machine? For daily cleaning on VCT, VET, all other types of floors. You can use it for heavy-duty scrubbing, restorative stripping. There's not any place that you can't use a cylindrical floor machine because it works on all floor surfaces. Along comes the newest player in the market. We've all seen these different manufacturers. They use a higher RPM with this oscillating type of floor machine. We also can use the wet or dry, so whenever you have those raised floors that you don't want to put water on, you can use these and you can get the floor done. There is just a tremendous pad selection to be put underneath these. And here you're seeing the battery-powered unit. There are electric ones as well. Here again, it's a balance of pH and physical removal because we do use these wet and dry. Now, floor burnishers, have been around for a long time. They're electric in most cases. That's what people use. The rear wheels stay on the floor. The motor is behind the pad driver. But folks, if you're spray buffing with it, I'm sorry to tell you, I don't care what product you're using, I don't care what pad you're using. If you're spray buffing with a high-speed RPM machine, you are not green cleaning and floor care. Then along came the propane units. These have not been new. They have been advancing. These are higher speed. We can get up, in some of these cases, up to over 3,000 RPMs. They have probably around 3 to 4 times the pressure of an electric. And there's an unlimited power source, kind of like your lawnmower. Whenever it starts to bog down, it just uses some more propane and revs up. But if you really want to get into, and you've got the large areas, you move from the propane into the battery-operated units. Now, in most of these cases, we're seeing a lot of people are going to the AGM batteries. The reason they go to these new batteries is because of the low VOCs. They don't emit the gases when charging. We don't have the issues with dripping of acid on floors. And this whole machine is more worker-friendly. You're going to get longer production from employees when you're talking about large areas. When it comes to auto scrubber, we're talking about physical removal. There's always pH involved. You're going to be putting water down, and that water is going to go over this cylindrical brush and be rotated across the floor surface. To further that physical removal, you have your squeegee. I've told clients for over 25 years that this is a piece of junk if that squeegee doesn't work right, and you will agree with me on that, I'm sure. The new machines that you're seeing coming out on the market are using less water, and one of the ways they're doing that is by putting a pulsating pump over the head of the machine. So instead of just a solution valve that flows the water out, you have a pump here that actually pumps the water out at measured intervals, and these units use up to around 30% less water than conventional auto scrubbers. And then you have your oscillating action, and what you're getting with this unit is you're getting a lot more RPM of oscillating. You're getting the wide pressure. As you can see, this whole unit here in this picture is all metal. A lot more things that we can do now with these than we have in the past. So let's review the steps of what we talked about here in the first 30 minutes. Core of green cleaning is the daily grit removal. This is what you need to focus on the most, from the door through the dust mop to the mat. Interim gloss restoration, you've got your two areas, whether it be your burnishing or whether it be your scrub and recoat process. And then you get into the restoration of the floor surface coatings. Through every single one of these performance steps, you will see pH and physical removal are the two keys, and the balance of those two. So I understand that we went through here right at about a half an hour, and if some of you can't stay with us, I certainly understand that. If you'll go to our website, you'll see down at the bottom of the website it says More Green Courses, and this is where you will find the Green Floor Care course. If you purchase that course, you will receive a 2-hour video that I personally shot, and it will show you how I actually go through and do the steps that I promote in our best floor care practices. If you can stay with me, I appreciate that. We've got about another half hour to go. I'm going to take a break for just a second. Okay, so what I like to ask now before we move on into the next section is, what type of floor machine do you use? You know, we spoke about several different types of floor machines. We talked about the rotary floor machine, the cylindrical floor machine, the oscillating floor machine. So what I like to do is put up a poll here for you that will explain or that we can find out exactly which one of these machines do you use. And it would be interesting to find out, before we go into the rest of this, what you're using now. And I hope that you don't take any offense, but the people that are using the conventional rotary machines, we're probably going to have a little bit of a problem when it comes to green cleaning. But you see, the thing is, beauty of it is, it's not what you're doing, it's where you're going. That's the whole nice thing about green cleaning. And I can see that as we're looking at this. It looks like we're getting quite a few that are using conventional rotary machines, but there's some, hey, the cylindrical machines are coming up. We have no oscillating machines. All right, well, I guess we'll close the poll and we'll go on. As you can see here, most people are using the conventional, some cylindrical, no oscillating, and the 8% is other. And if you'd like to, at some point, send me a note. I'd like to know what those others are. All right, so what we have in our program that I want to speak to you for just a few minutes about is a roadmap to professional and successful green cleaning. Now, this is a free standard that we have, and whenever you get this, I want you to go in and put in your client's name. So you may be, I know I saw Parkway School Districts. If you're there, I think you're still with us, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. So no matter what school district, whether you're a daycare, whether you're a hospital, whether you're a building service contractor, it doesn't really make any difference. What you're going to do is put in your name and your city and state here. What you're trying to do is reach 90 points. Now you can see here, this person only has 80 points. They have a little bit to go. Now at 90 points, you're actually going to get on the charts right here. Now there's over 900 points that are available in the program. So, you know, just like all of us we want to achieve the most points that we possibly can in any program to prove that we're, you know, the cream of the crop. How do you do that? Well, you start, first of all, by clicking off where you have got some education. And we recognize, of course, our own education. We also recognize IEHA and SIMS. So you're going to get points for your education first. And the reason we do this is because we want to know if you understand what you're doing before you go to try to implement. Now, once you have your understanding and you're trying to implement, we want to know what is it that you're doing that is doing right. And as some people have said here, what we have 25% said they use cylindrical. So whenever you're going in here, if you're part of that 25%, you can click right in here and you would get 5 points over here. If you have a written maintenance policy that shows that you've done maintenance, if you have the batteries that we talked about, the AGM batteries, you could gain 15 points right here towards your 90. If you have those outside mats, I think, what was it, several percentage, 100% said they had bi-level mat. Now the question is, where do you have those mats? Is it on the outdoor, the indoor, is it the vestibule? What length are those? You get points for every check mark that you can put in here. If you're actually doing the processes and you have put in the best practices, then you're going to get more points. Do you have a refinishing cycle on your floor finish that is every 3 to 5 years? Do you have chemical-free stripping and top scrubbing? You see, you get points. All the way through this, we're trying to get points for you to recognize what you're doing right and reward you for that, and then help you find a pathway for where you want to go. Now, if you've attended the webinar live today, you're automatically going to get one of these. And did I mention that this is free? I'm sure that your budget can afford that. There is a green team approach to doing floor care. And as you can see, here's 2 individuals. One individual is scrubbing with the yellow auto scrubber. The other one is burnishing the floor that has already been scrubbed. And this is a team, not one person jumping off of one machine and jumping back on another machine. It's a team approach, and this requires timing. And the other thing is floors take up the largest expanse of what we do in the janitorial market. So whenever you have a floor tech, you really want that floor tech to do floors. Now, it doesn't really matter which floor he's doing, but he understands or she understands that that floor and cleaning it requires certain things, and they're going to make sure that equipment works for them. So I find that the best green team approach to doing floors is have floor care technicians only do floors. Now, when it comes to interim maintenance, you're going to choose your product, whatever restore that you have found that works with your floor finish, what your distributorship feels is the best product. You're going to then put in the right program for running the right machine, the right pressure, the right pad, and this is all a very important issue. You've got to put the restorer and the product together, and if you're running a floor machine without a restorer, you're probably not getting the best results that you should be. But here's the one thing that most people do. They quit right at this point. Well, don't quit, because you need to finish the job. Grab that microfiber dust mop and dust mop that floor after the floor finish has been done. You remember that grain of sand that has 35 cutting edges? Well, I can tell you that little bitty black piece of floor finish that's been taken off the floor and rolled up is just as hard as that piece of sand and has cutting edges on it. So why did you go through all of this effort just to leave that burnished floor finish on the floor where it's going to then act as sandpaper? Now, if you're top scrubbing and recoat, I suggest that the best thing you can do is get a cylindrical brush. If you understand anything about grit removal and what it does to floor finish, this grit is going to be ground into the floor. When you use a conventional rotary machine, it's pushing it into the floor with down pressure. With a cylindrical brush, it's rotating it off the floor. There's less abrasion. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to abrade the floor finish. We just want to get it clean. So we're going to use a green certified product. In this case, it's Green Seal. But you need to have that right green product to go with it. Understand a top scrub and recoat. You do not want to abrade the floor finish. You want to remove the dirt and the grime from it. Because what we're going to do is, if you have to, you're going to use neutralizer. If you're using a pH 7 product and you're using a cylindrical brush and you've got a good squeegee, many times a neutralizer is not needed. Depending on your area of the country, depending on how long it's been, there could be some other issues involved, but most generally this is a chemical you're not going to need. And if you're going to put down floor finish, folks, I'm going to show you a different way today than what most people, but you see here the lady has a floor finish on her back. It's going down on the floor. Notice there's no mop bucket in sight. Finish removal. Now, Steve Ashkin is a person that a lot of people know, and in 2010, he had this to say about the manufacturers of floor pads now offer options that will mechanically remove or strip floor finish just using an all-purpose cleaner. He went on to say that this eliminates the need for floor stripping chemicals, the hazardous products that have the potential to burn skin or permanently damage eyes. Well, things have changed a little bit since 2010, and now what we have here is a very broad selection of pads. When they first came out, we did not have this. And along with those pads now comes the difference in the machines. When they first came out, we were very relegated to a certain size, pressure, and options. And now you have a lot of those. So select the right pad, select the right machine. There's not one size fits all, just like everything in the cleaning industry. But what's going to happen here is once that you've removed or abraded that floor finish with the pad and the machine, you're going to rinse with water. No chemicals needed here. This is water rinsing. And whenever you do rinse that floor, what I promote is the use of a no-touch cleaning machine. And the first thing is go along those edges. And as you can see, as the person does this, the water is rinsed away from the edge, and any of the solution, anything that is along the edge, comes out in the middle. And then what I can do is take my floor scrubber, and I can actually remove it. So what did we have there? We had our pH. We had some of the physical removal of abrading the floor, but now we're implementing more pH and removing that from the floor. And the only way to do that is with vacuums. You do not do this with a mop. You cannot do it with just a squeegee. This has to be vacuumed off the floor. So whether you're using your no-touch cleaning machine or you're using an automatic scrubber, Physical removal by vacuum is the only way to do it. Because what you're removing is this gray, milky substance. It looks familiar to what your floor stripper solution looked like after you've used it for a while. Gee, guess why? It's floor finish. All we did here was used a pad, water, abrasion, and this is what we're picking up. And this is what you're left with. A nice, clean floor that has no finish along the edges, is completely blank across the floor. So you can see here the difference between what this process did and the floor that hasn't been touched. Now, I'm not going to get into a whole long thing today. We don't have all that much time. Matter of fact, we've only got about 20 minutes left. I'm not going to get into the differences in this, but there is so much that you can do with these. And it's just like if you're putting liquid stripper on the floor, time will make a lot of difference. Okay, now we've got the floor clean, we've got the physical removal, but now comes the part of how to put the finish back. And I know this is only every 5 years, but if you're starting your floor care program and you're greening your floor care program today, this is going to be very important. And even if you have a 5-year program, sometimes you still need to lay finish in certain areas. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions here. It should be coming up momentarily. How do you lay floor finish? Do you lay it from a mop bucket? Do you pour it on the floor and spread it? Do you use a backpack? Or is there another way that you use it? Now, like I said, I've only been doing this about 40 years, so I guess I have the ability to say a few things. I did run a contracting service in Oklahoma and did millions of square feet of floor, and I can tell you I just about used every way that it was possible to lay floor finish. And I can guarantee you that some of it wasn't very green. But today we have a whole lot of different other ideas to use and ways to do that. And as we see here, we have about 80% of the people have voted. A few of you are still hanging off there. Okay, so we'll close the poll here, and it looks like we have 40% people lay their floor finish from a mop bucket, 40% poured on the floor, 13% do it from a backpack, and 7% of you are still exploring with some other way. Well, I use no mop bucket. If you're using a mop bucket today, I don't care whether you've got a green floor finish in there. If you're using a mop bucket and a wringer and a plastic trash can liner, you are not applying floor finish in a green way. Because if you will remove that mop bucket and everything that goes with it, I can guarantee you will save about 30% on your floor finish budget over the next year. Now, I know that's a big thing to say, but how would you like to save 30% in the amount of floor finish that you spend? Over the years, I have proven that this is true. And one of the ways that I do that is by pouring it on the floor. You know, floor finish comes from the manufacturer, pure and clean. And if you pour it on the floor and spread it out, why is it that we have this great big tool on the floor that all it does is absorb the floor finish and make it heavy for me to drag around? If you will use this is not microfiber, this is acrylic, and I use this pad so that it actually pushes the finish out and spreads it. As you can see, there's a little puddle there. That's about a 2 square puddle of finish, and that will do, as you see, about 8 feet wide and about 20 to 25 feet long. When you get done, you'll notice that all I have to clean up at the end is a trash can liner. I put the liner, the applicator in it. The finish is now closed off with the seal from the manufacturer. And if you want to go and look at this video, there's a little clip of it on our YouTube site, and you can go and click that out free of charge and take a look at how I do this. Now, the other way is to mop it on with a backpack. And here you can see in this, I'm sorry this got up a little bit, but here is the mop, the applicator and the container, and on the other side what I was doing here is using a backpack and flowing it out on the floor. Either one of these ways is going to save you around 30% of that floor finish that you were using when you mopped it out from a mop bucket. So what are some of the key points in greening hard floor care that we've went through today? Now, I know I've talked about VCT floor mainly, but a lot of this still applies in the physical removal to every floor surface that goes in the building. So the first thing that you've got to do is remove that dirt and debris first, and that's done by matting, whatever type of system that you're using, dust mop, sweeper, etc. Green cleaning is a balance. It is always a balance between two things, pH and physical removal. Now, along with those always comes time and agitation. Those are the secondary things, but the two first things in all green cleaning is pH and physical removal. You always want to, in green floor care, use systems that lessen any abrasion to the floor surfaces. And this is the mats, the dust mops, the mops, the auto scrubbers, the burnishers. Everything that you use through the whole system needs to be focused on lessening that abrasion to the surface, because this is what's costing you more time and effort, and that is not green. But when you do all of this, you need to just understand that before you start putting all these pieces together, you need to focus on one of the biggest things, and that's time. I don't care what the tool is, I don't care what you have, what chemical, what piece of equipment. If you don't focus around that time, the equipment and the budget's going to suffer, because you're going to use the wrong equipment and now your budget's went completely out of whack. So based on those three things, focus your system and put together a good cleaning system. Now, I've got another webinar coming up October the 30th. It will be on the first part of the technician course, and in November it will be on greening carpet care. As I said before we started this afternoon, I am on my way to the Green Cleaning Expo here in Florida with the Department of Environmental Protection. Those of you that are coming down, I would love to see you and talk with you. If you can't make that, I will be at the IEHA convention along with ISSA in mid-October. What I'd like for you to do is, at the end of this webinar today, you can go to the website, and if you go to the webinar tab, you will find the quiz link here. So if you're looking for your recertification CEUs, you can go there now and take the quiz that goes along with this course and get your free CEU. And once you have done that, you will get a certificate that will show you that you have gotten your CEU and can use this in presentation to other folks, and we will record that for you. Now, coming to the questions and answers, as I said, I work a lot with different blogs all over the country. And here's one that came from Tammy, and it happens to be here in, close to where I'm at right now in Jacksonville, Florida. And she works at a hospital, and she had this to say, that her wax is wearing off with both chairs and foot traffic. She ordered plastic floor protectors for under the chairs, but they're still walking off the floor finish. After 24 hours, we burnish the wax and try to harden it up in that area so that we can, but we have a hard time getting to the area to burnish it on a regular basis. I'm not worried about the shine. I just want to do something on the floor so that it will be easier to do daily mopping. Now, I'm not sure about what you've heard here today, but this is very typical of what I see. First thing, let's think about this. If you put a plastic floor protector under a hard metal chair leg and put soft floor finish in between that and hard VCT, the thing that is going to wear here is going to be the plastic floor finish, not the plastic floor tab. Floor finish is plastic as well, but it's softer than anything else in this whole scenario. So what you would want to do here, Tammy, is you would want to use a carpeted tab like we showed you here before. That felt tab, not carpet, that felt tab is not going to abrade the floor finish. The second thing is, every manufacturer will tell you 72 hours before you burnish the floor finish. In that first 24 hours, it's still evaporating moisture. It is too soft, and when you put that burnisher on it in that first 24 hours, what you're doing effectively is you're burnishing off floor finish that you spent time to put on. So you really don't want to do that. And the third thing here is, you know, I really am not a big proponent of burnishing hardly at all. it's cleaning that floor on a daily basis. Every time that you burnish, you're burnishing, you're spending time that is taking away from dust mopping and mopping. So if I would say there's another thing that I don't know here with Tammy is what doormats, what matting was there, and how often are they doing the physical removal. I would much rather see a person spend much more time on physical removal and removing the debris rather than burnishing. Now we'll have a little section here for Q&A here in a moment. I want to continue a couple other things before we quit because I think we're getting close on our time. And I'd like to say special thanks to Columbia Public Schools and Rolla Public Schools. These school districts are Green Clean certified by our institute and provided some of the camera shots that we were able to use today. What I'd say that if you need to have more information, get our floor care course as we talked about before. Go online, you can get that course. But the two basic core principles in all of green care, green floor care, is still, always will be, has always been, not always identified, pH and physical removal. I told you I would show you what green cleaning can do. Now this is a process that I did using our best practice standards, and I did this all while the kids were in the other area. They were in the building. There was teachers there. There was everybody running around. I cleaned these floors in a very timely fashion in one day and returned them to what they should have been like. This is using green cleaning at its best, where you can actually go in and clean a facility, not have chemical exposures, not disrupt. And by the way, did I tell you, I'm a chronic asthmatic. I pay $8,000 a year for medication to breathe. Do you think that I would have put myself to the exposure of toxic chemicals in order to have these results? I wouldn't do that to myself. I wouldn't do it to my client, and neither should you. If you're using our best cleaning, our best practice standards and getting the results from green floor care, this is what you should be after, and do it in a less harmful way. I want to say thank you for attending the webinar today, and I hope I've been of some help to you. If there's any questions that you have, you can ask those now. We'll stay online for a little while to answer your questions. If you'd like to see some of our videos on the subject, you can go to our YouTube site. There's several videos there that can help you explain some of this. So, I'd like to see if anybody has any questions. I don't see any of them coming up. So if people would like to maybe type them in later, we'd be glad to have that. Otherwise, thank you for your time this afternoon, and I look forward to seeing some of you at one of our conferences. Good day.